So I use Chat GPT to analyze some of our data. So here's our Maximus system, and I wanted to analyze some of our Pharaoh control data. So I'm looking at a time period right now. So let's say I want to know, in September. So I go September to, end of September. And then I'm going to pull the results. So just for context, I had already ran this analysis in GPT. It took a little bit of setup, just thinking through some logic, and I did that on a different data set. So now what I'm doing is I'm pulling another data set and just asking it to do similar logic. So first what I have to do here is I just have to clean the data a little bit just to make it in a format that GPT will understand. So here we go. Here's my data set, and I'm going to save it as data set example GPT. And I'm going to save on my desktop and save. Now I'm going to go to GPT where I already kind of set up everything. And so I'm going to go like this. Can you perform the same above analysis on this data set? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that data set. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to find the data set. Here's that new data set that I just pulled. So let's see it work its magic and see if this works. All right. So again, I set up this and did it on a completely different data set. And now I'm just pulling a different data set and asking it to do the same analysis. So what it's doing in the background is it's coding. So it's looking, hold up. Could you please let me know which column represents breeding tech? What column that represents breeding tech is column K. So let me go, here we go, column K represents breeding tech. Here we go. All right, here we go. And also I asked it to randomize the names. So these are actually our people, but that's not actually their names, just because I thought it'd be better to keep it anonymous. So what it's doing in the back end is it's analyzing all that data, and then it's putting it through the same analysis that I set up the logic for. So pretty much GPT, enabled me to essentially code without actually having to do any code. It's writing the code for me. I just walked GPT through the logic. Well, it is working. I'm just going to pause the video so it's not as slow. This usually takes, anywhere from, 1 minute, I would say usually, but it seems to be having to work a little harder here. So I'm just going to pause it for a second. Okay, here it says, just for note, that was like 3 seconds later and then started doing it. So it finished doing it. And here we go. So here are the tables for the breeding tech gilt fallout analysis on the third data set. So here we go, count of services. So it counted, again, so these tech 1 to 8 represent 8 different techs, swine techs that we have in our operations. Here are the total services they did, the total gilt services they did, the total non-gilt services they did, the total fallouts that were gilts, and the total fallouts that were non-gilts. And then here are the total fallouts in general. Then I had it do a percentage breakdown. And that was, okay, so again, percent of services that are gilts, so this tech had 15% that were gilts, 84% of the animals that they serviced were non-gilts, so obviously it's 100% total services. Of that, how many of his fallouts were gilts of the total services, and 4.3% were gilts, and 10.8% were non-gilts. So his total fallouts was 15%. And then I wanted to know further. I wanted to know of the fallouts, what was my fallout percentage per that type. So, Tech 1 had 14 total gilt services. There was 4 fallouts that were gilts. So if you do, fallouts divided by total gilt services, that means the fallout on just his gilts was 28%. On the non-gilts, he had total 78%, 78 services. And then of the fallouts, 10% or 10 of them were fallouts. And so his non-gilt